Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really getting into a compelling civil rights case. It's Roth v. California Department of Parks and Recreation et al.
That's right.
Our aim here is to unpack some serious allegations. We're talking about a potential multi-decade campaign of targeted harassment, even unconstitutional retaliation.
Yeah, involving multiple California government agencies, all directed against one person, Stephen K. Roth.
It really sounds like a classic David versus Goliath story almost.
Well, it is, but it's also, bigger than just one individual. The expert report we're looking at today, it provides this chronological legal breakdown.
Okay.
And it raises some really critical questions. Things like due process, government accountability, even basic access to public services for everyone.
So let's start at the beginning. Stephen K. Roth, he founded Seahorse Equestrian Rentals and Transportation back in 2012, and it was an ADA-inclusive business, right?
Exactly. ADA inclusive. But that timing, 2012, it's crucial.
Why that?
Because that very same year, California State Parks, or CSP, they were in hot water. Big scandal.
Oh, yeah, I vaguely remember something.
They'd apparently hidden something like $54 million in surplus funds for over a decade.
Wow.
While at the same time threatening to close parks because they supposedly had no money.
Okay, so that context is important. It suggests a certain pattern, maybe?
The expert report definitely highlights it, calls it a documented pattern of alleged bad faith conduct by the agency. That's the backdrop Roth walked into.
And almost immediately, his business plans apparently hit a snag. He claims there was this bait and switch.
Mm-hmm.
A CSP official supposedly took his permit fee, like $2,600,
Right.
and then just turned around and said, "We don't like dealing with horse people."
Yeah.
Just like that.
If true, that's pretty blatant. It shows how personal feelings could potentially override policy.
And that wasn't the end of it. According to the report, this kicked off years of harassment. Citations based on a regulation, 14 CCR Section 4331.
Which Roth claims is fundamentally invalid, that it gives officials just way too much arbitrary power. Unchecked power, really.
Okay, so fast forward a bit. There's a turning point, or what should have been one, in 2018. A plea agreement.
Yes, in a related criminal case. And this agreement was really specific. It explicitly allowed Roth to keep renting his horses for use in state parks.
So, problem solved.
You'd think. The only condition was that the money, the financial transaction, had to happen off-park property. Simple enough. It really should have ended the whole conflict.
But judging by the fact we're talking about it now, it didn't.
Not even close, according to the report. It alleges that CSP and the Monterey County DA's office just flagrantly violated the agreement.
How?
They apparently issued site-on-site orders against him, and then they launched a civil suit, an unfair competition lawsuit, a UCL suit.
Wait, for the same thing the plea agreement allowed him to do?
Exactly the same conduct. It seems, well, contradictory, to say the least.
What possible reason could they have for pursuing a civil suit after a plea deal supposedly settled the matter?
Well, the report suggests it was just more harassment. A continuation of the pattern. It even mentions a DA investigator allegedly digging through Yelp reviews to contact Roth's former client.
Seriously, Yelp reviews.
Yeah, seemingly to pressure them, maybe build this UCL case. It points towards an alleged intent to maybe cripple his business, not just, enforce rules.
Okay, this leads us to something even more concerning. The idea that the judicial process itself might have been compromised.
This is a really troubling part of the report. February 2024. Roth's attorney, who'd been with him for 13 years.
13 years, that's a long time.
Right, suddenly withdraws, just like that. And it happened right after an ex parte meeting.
Ex parte meaning Roth wasn't there.
Exactly. A meeting between the judge and the opposing lawyers, but Roth and his lawyer were excluded, which is highly irregular.
13 years, then an ex parte meeting, then withdrawal. That sounds odd. Does the report suggest why the attorney might have left so abruptly?
It doesn't speculate on the why for the attorney, but it focuses on the immediate impact on Roth. It was devastating.
What happened?
The court almost immediately granted summary judgment against Roth. He had no lawyer, case over, no trial.
On what grounds?
Deemed admissions, basically because he was now unrepresented and allegedly prevented from filing his own defense paperwork.
Presented how?
The report states a court clerk actually refused to accept his filings. And apparently, someone named Claire Paris witnessed this refusal.
So his side of the story just wasn't heard.
Effectively, yes. The court just accepted the other side's claims as fact because his defense wasn't formally filed, allegedly due to these barriers. It raises huge due process questions.
Absolutely. And the pressure didn't let up even then.
No. The report claims that into 2025, the Monterey County SPCA seized his horse, Paloma. Again, allegedly without notice or proper due process. Seems like another intimidation tactic.
So stepping back from the specifics of Roth's case, what are the bigger takeaways here for everyone listening?
Well, it really touches on some fundamental things.
Like the validity of these kinds of regulations, like 14 CCR Section 4331, that seem to give officials carte blanche.
Exactly. And First Amendment issues potential retaliation for challenging the government. Plus, the procedural due process violations, being denied a fair chance to defend yourself in court.
And there's an ADA angle too, isn't there?
Hugely important. The Americans with Disabilities Act, and also something called the Tucker v. California Consent Decree.
What's that?
It's a legal agreement that specifically mandates California state parks provide access for horseback riding, programmatic access.
So by targeting Roth's ADA-inclusive business,
They were allegedly, effectively shutting down that mandated access, especially for riders with disabilities. That's a potential violation of a federal court order.
the report also talks about a pattern and practice. What does that mean legally?
It points towards something called Monell liability. It means the government entities themselves, not just individual employees, could potentially be held responsible if these actions reflect an official policy or custom.
And it wasn't just Roth affected. His landlord apparently got caught in the crossfire.
Yeah, a really concrete example of the ripple effect. The report mentions the landlord ended up with 9 years of back rent owed because Roth's business was allegedly interfered with so severely.
It's just quite a story.
Yeah.
This deep dive shows a really complex, frankly, disturbing picture of alleged government overreach.
It really does, and it forces you to ask some tough questions. What are the real costs here? Beyond the money, beyond the stress for one person.
When government agencies are accused of using their power like this,
Yeah.
even potentially undermining the courts,
Right, and what systems do we actually have in place to hold powerful entities accountable? How do we make sure everyone gets fair treatment and equal access? Those are the questions this case leaves us with.